I don't know why, but every time I go in and set it, my input and output keeps changing. Like every time.
Operator headspace and timing.
I hear
No, I
trannies
don't.
have that issue all the time.
Whatever.
Hey,
So
trannies didn't come up tonight.
Well, it sort of did.
Did it?
Oh no, I guess
When?
it came up in the Slack chat. Sorry, it
well,
didn't come
no,
up on
no,
the
no.
debate. We brought it up.
It came up in the debate when JD Vance said we have a mental health crisis in this country.
So let's get right into it. We want to thank everybody who joined us in the Slack channel. It's kind of good to have that banter going back and forth, and I love getting the live feedback. And sometimes it's hard to keep up with because we've got all three of us. We've got the dozens and dozens. Okay, the 4 people in Slack that interact with us, and I've got my wife and I've got my neighbors on chat. It's going nuts. But it's kind of nice to hear that immediate feedback because I think all of us, what happens is, we'll turn on Fox News tonight, CNN, you'll start hearing the pundits, and that starts to help formulate your opinion of what you saw. Whereas Slack, man, it's live, right? I mean, it's raw. We throw it out there. And so we want to throw a quick recording out there just so, kind of give our wave top thoughts, some takeaways, and see who won this thing. So, Josh, what do you think, man? What's your overall take? And was there a winner of this thing?
So I don't think there was a winner, honestly. I wrote down some notes for each of them. So starting with Tim Walsh, he started really slow. Like he was super nervous at the very beginning. You could tell he was super tight. But I think he loosened up and he fell into a groove probably after the first 15 minutes and and did okay. He had some he had some times where he misspoke and he said some really stupid things like I become friends with lots of school shooters. That was
Dude, they are
that,
already making
that was
memes
not good.
about that. Like it
Yeah,
took like
yeah,
22 seconds and memes were flying out on it.
yeah. That was good. I think abortion was his strongest. The strongest comment. Strongest area that he debated. That's so good. If anybody's listening to this and not on YouTube, you got to jump on YouTube and see what Roger's been doing with his 3D printer. The world doesn't deserve him. Abortion was probably the strongest subject. For Tim. Other than that, he had to defend the indefensible. He had to defend Kamala Harris's record, which it's absolutely deplorable. It's absolutely indefensible. So I don't know that Tim Walsh gained. I don't know that he got any independence tonight. I don't see it. Um, I just don't. For JD Vance, my notes on him. He started really strong. When he started off with that first answer, I was like, dude, don't go the Kamala route. It's like, what do you think about X? Well, I was raised in a middle class family, and it was like, what are you doing? But one thing is for sure, Kamala Harris is thanking her lucky stars. She did not have to debate JD Vance because JD Vance is a master debater. He is very good, very, very good. Ben Shapiro is a great debater. Whether he's destroying college students or whether he's actually debating other adults, like he's a great debater. And he said this before, not tonight, but it was before. He's like JD Vance is one fantastic debater. Like he's just really really good. Abortion was JD's weakest area. I don't understand why Republicans can't get off the X on abortion. Any question you get on abortion, no, there should not be a national ban on abortion. Abortion was given back to the states as per the Constitution. That's it. Whether I agree with, what each state does, that's, we can discuss that. But hey, at the end of the day, it was given back to the states as per the Constitution. That's it. Move on. Next question. Get off of it. And he gave too many. I agree with Tim on this. There's a lot of things I agree with. You say that maybe once on something to show that, hey, I'm not. We're amenable to each other. We're colleagues. We're gonna have we're gonna have some civil discourse. But he said it time and time again to the point where it was like, okay, well, why shouldn't I just vote for Tim? Because if you agree with him on all these things, and you go back out and you label that, you label Kamala and Tim Walz as Marxist radicals, and then you come into a debate and you go, yeah, I agree with him on a lot of those points. It doesn't. It to me, it just it didn't sit right with me. I could be wrong, but I didn't like it. So those are my thoughts on how it went down. And I don't know that, and I don't know that JD Vance. I don't know that he pulled any independents tonight either.
Maybe, maybe not with the independents. I agree with you that Waltz did not. Might have pulled a couple of people who claim they're independents in Minnesota, maybe. But if you were part of our Slack chat, which you should be next time, you could hear Luke's thoughts on what he thinks about a lot of Minnesotans out there. So I'll tell you this, though. Yeah, you're right, Josh. Kamala Harris is very, very happy that she did not have to debate JD Vance tonight. But there is a portion of her that's thinking in her insomnia that she's been experiencing that maybe we should have gone with the Jew, Josh Shapiro out of Pennsylvania.
Oh, yeah.
Different.
Dude, did you see him on Fox News today? Did you see him on
did.
Cavuto?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
I mean, Democrat, but very well done, right?
That would have been an amazing debate. It would have been amazing because I really don't think, you always play down to your competition, right? You always play down to your competition. You'll have the 1995 Bulls. 95, is that accurate, Roger? They're pretty good in 95. 93,
96, yeah.
96 Bulls playing like, a new expansion team. And it's like the Bulls are going to blow them out, but you always play down to your competition, right? You always play down to your competition, so you have a horrible game. And I don't think J.D. Vance had a horrible debate, but he's debating Tim Walz, he wasn't bad tonight. He was not bad, but it's just like going back to Josh Shapiro. It's like, man, let's see these two guys go head to head. And to Josh's point about, I agree with that. I think that both camps, because they both said it a few times, I think we would both agree on this. I think that both camps in the vice presidential debate got feedback. It's like, hey, what the independents want is to see people disagree but agree, like the civil debates, Ronald Reagan, Walter Mondale type thing. So I think that there was a bit of that going on. But to Roger's thing, who won, who lost? I put this in the chat with you guys and maybe on the Slack too. It's like, who won the debate? It wasn't Donald Trump. It was who benefited most from the debate. Is what I said. It's not Donald Trump. It's not Harris, and it's not Walz. You know who benefited most from that debate is JD Vance. And this is where I'll go back to the independent voters. It's like if anybody bothered to watch that debate, which not many people did, but it's like my wife, she's conservative, whatever, but she's watching that and she's watching JD Vance, she's drooling. She's drooling because it's like, why can't this guy be president? I want that man to hold me. Whatever. It's like, that's what I want. And he did himself a lot of favors tonight. And I think that, honestly, Roger, correct me if I'm wrong. I could be wrong. But it's like, I think that was his goal, man. I think he wanted to, and Trump, I don't know. I haven't seen the Truth Social posts, but JD Vance did himself a lot of favors tonight. He didn't damage Trump at all. It's not that. It's just like, man, he benefited the most from tonight. That's my view.
Yeah, totally agree with you. It's if RDS had the same demeanor and performance. Now, JD Vance, it was one debate, right? But if he had the same debate performance, stage presence as JD Vance just showed us right now, RDS would be the Republican nominee. No doubt in my mind. And we've talked about this before ad nauseum. I think Ron DeSantis has the full package. Just, hey man, when he gets up there on that stage, it doesn't come across as very genuine. And I think what you saw with JD Vance, and a little bit different than Shapiro, or the same as Shapiro, demeanor very calm, very level, very articulate, right? Expresses ideas. And I think, and I think sometimes we get a little too deep into it. Going back to what Josh was talking about, the agreeing with Tim Walz. One thing I did notice with that was he was agreeing with a lot of the problems that Tim Walz was bringing up, and what I thought that Vance did, and he did it over and over and over again. And it's about time somebody listens. Hey, man, Kamala's been the vice president for the last 3 years. Why are you waiting to enact all these solutions? Hey, the closing argument. I mean, I think that was, they do that with the coin toss. It's a winner for JD Vance to be able to close that out, right? Because that's what he did. And we've said it 1,000 times here. And I don't understand the people around Trump. I know it's supposed to be the vice president debate, but Vance did it several times. Hey, man, my answer to everything is, what did you pay for milk last week? What did you pay for gas last week? What's your credit card interest rate? That's your answer to everything, and I thought he did a very, very good job, circling back. And Josh, you said it several times on Slack. He didn't take the bait, right? And my number one thing at the top of my notes I have is deja vu. Like, dude, the moderators, like, I'm done with the moderators, man. I was done with them before. I'm completely done with the moderators. They got better towards the end because a producer got in their ear and said, hey, this is actually looking pretty daggum bad. So you need to start fixing yourself here. But like first 30 minutes, it's the fact checking and Vance. And again, he's not like different demeanor than Trump, right? Trump's very aggressive, but Vance came up pretty smooth about it, said, hey, you guys said you weren't going to fact check. And, and it's like, oh yeah, he just kind of called us out on all this because they forget. My second note is Kamala's the current vice president. Trump's not in office. So the moderators go, well, what if Trump? What if Trump? What about Trump? So, well, you know what? I had 4 years of Trump. We've got 3 years of Kamala Harris in the office right now. So why don't you fact check or ask Tim Walz these same things that you're asking JD Vance? But I think at the end of the day, Tim Walz, I don't think he did a bad job. He just had, I forget which one of you said it was either Luke or Josh. Like, dude, it's unwinnable, right? It's like you're having to defend Kamala Harris's record, and he can't get out there and say, well, I'm not in the administration. I'm still a governor. I mean, you can't give that response. So, he did the best he could with the turd that he had. JD Vance, totally agree with you. Spot on. He was the overall winner of the evening. I'm not sure if that translates into votes or anything. I do think it does bring up an interesting 2028. But what I do like is he did defend Trump. He didn't poop on him, didn't poop on any of the policies. I thought he was very transparent. Like Josh said, I kind of go back and forth to the abortion thing because I'm spot on with Josh. The thing is, those people that are voting against that issue, that stance, don't care. They don't care. They don't understand it. They've never read the 10th Amendment. They don't care about the 10th Amendment. These are the same people that had you fired because you couldn't, you wouldn't take a vaccine, right? They don't care. So nothing you say on that is going to change that. There's these, SSRI women that want, or they're angry because a woman in another state can or can't have an abortion or whatever the deal is. It's just a no-win thing. So you have to be able to just, hey, here's my position and move on. I do agree with you. You got to come out readily and be like, hey, the national abortion ban, that's a no-go. The only other soft spot I saw in JD Vance was, and he could have answered this, wittingly, because he had some pretty good lines throughout the debate when they asked, did Trump lose 2020? Well, Trump's not in office right now, so clearly he lost, right? But I will tell you, and I know he can't bring this up, and he won't bring it up, and he's right. He's right not to bring it up. But I put it in the Slack channel. It's like, hey, some folks out here in Arizona would like to have a word with you because the 90,000 people that we brought up before that could or could not have been illegals because there was no, birth certificate verification or U.S. citizenship verification. Yeah. So the Secretary of State Democrat just came back. It was like, yeah. So what happened was it wasn't really 90,000. It was like 218,000. Okay. Now of this 218,000, what number does that grow to next week or next month, or if you even find out? But I do agree with both of you. And I think, Luke, I think you're spot on. Part of JD Vance winning was supporting Donald Trump, and even Donald Trump on Truth Social was coming out, it's killing it, did a good job. But I think at the end of the day, man, I mean, Vance helped himself. And, even my wife's like, I'd vote for this dude in 2028. She's already saying it.
Yep. Same. Do you think
just,
that
it's the blue eyes?
Do you think, Josh, do you think that Ron DeSantis is just like, oh, geez, it's just not going to happen for me now?
No, dude, 2028. I mean, that's an eternity away in politics.
True.
right? And so, you know,
And
if you
losing
take a
VPs don't
look,
do well.
I
We
was about
said
to
that.
say, right? You take a look at VPs from losing tickets. What did they do after that in politics? It not much, right? So, you know, Vance hadn't, he hadn't won anything yet. Now, if you want to talk about, you want to talk about a ticket, a JD Vance RDS ticket, and put either one of those in the driver's seat. That's a very very strong ticket. Um, so
Who fills
2028
what
is a
spot?
long way away. What's that?
Who fills what spot? Who's the
Either one.
president? He's the VP.
Either one.
You need Ron
Right?
DeSantis's performance and policies with JD Vance's demeanor and performance, right? Public
Boom.
performance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Performance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think again, I go back to I think governors tend to be better presidents.
Yeah.
By and large.
And that's the
So,
thing,
but
Josh, real quick, is that, as I'm watching this debate, Waltz, I'm telling you, it's going to be Sandusky. There is no way that guy has not molested little children. There is boys in particular, but
100%.
I'm sitting here thinking it's like a governor versus a senator. And this is where I'm kicking it back to you. I'm sorry. I hold governors in a higher regard than senators personally. You guys are both north-southing it. So it's like, I think that right there, Tim Walz had an advantage there. So good for him. But one thing I want to ask you, Josh, I know you were about to go on a tirade, but I want to ask you this because I got really flustered at one point in the debate when I can't even remember what they were talking about, but the moderators kind of got involved, and then JD Vance started fact checking them. And I stopped paying attention because I was so mad. I stopped paying attention. I was yelling and drinking my beer and doing all this. Do you remember that point, Josh? Because I don't. So
it was in probably the first quarter of that debate. And so the moderators were supposed to, allow the candidates to fact check each other. The moderators were not supposed to be fact checking the candidates, and they decided that they were going to go ahead and fact check JD Vance and, not fact check Tim Walz. And no, I love to see that fight come out in JD Vance. He said, no. You're not going to do that to me and not do that to the other candidate, and single me out. The moderator started off horrible. I think they finished up okay. I think they got a talking to somewhere along the road, like, hey, you're making CBS look bad. Two, this is gonna hurt Tim Walz more than it hurts JD Vance. So you got to knock it off. They didn't do it because out of the goodness of their own heart. And I'm gonna tell you right now, at the end of the day, those two women should not be moderating. They should not be moderating because they do not have the temperament to moderate two men. They just don't.
They could not wait, dude. They could not wait from the right. They could not.
They didn't even wait for them to finish their answers. They didn't even wait for them to finish their answers before they started, wanting to cut in. And at the end of the day, even when Tim Walz talked over him a little bit, right? And so at the end of the day, I'm going to tell you right, and some people can say this is sexist or whatever, but if you have two male candidates, you do not need to have two female moderators. You just don't. Because at the end of the day, dude, especially if they're type A personalities, they're going to run over you and they're going to talk over you. And that's just the way it is. So.
And I don't think Walz's demeanor helped him either. Like, he always looked angry and slightly confused, right? Like he was befuddled or something like that. Or it reminds me like an Alzheimer's patient that's like looking for his house, or, I lost my keys, and,
he looked like he had just been accused of shoplifting at the PX.
But going back to like the moderators, and here was where I got pissed off, right? So they were talking about the border, and JD Vance comes out and he's like, Kamala's policies, blase, is allowing drugs across the border, fentanyl, whatever. And this is not a direct quote, but it's pretty close. Moderator comes to Tim Walz and then says, "Do you agree the VP is letting in fentanyl and allowing kids to be used as drug mules?" Like, what kind of redirect is that? One, that's not what JD Vance said. And of course, what's he supposed? It's a lead in, right? I mean, what's he supposed to say? Oh yeah, the current VP is allowing fentanyl to come across the border. I mean, it's a loaded question, you know. And then the second piece after that was, you know, Walsh responded, and then JD Vance rightfully says, like, hey, I want to respond to that as well. And so they're like, okay, you have 1 minute. Oh, and by the way, here's a new question for you. So you get to answer the new question, which you're supposed to have 2 minutes for, and you have to do your rebuttal, and you have to do everything in 1 minute. It kind of goes back to Josh's, how would you fix, democracy? You have 30 seconds. Go ahead and go. It's like, okay, by the time you start, it's already over with. And that's what pissed me off. And finally, at the end, when you actually had some banter, because I think it was Luke that was saying it was getting a little boring. At the end, you actually had some banter, right? And I like the banter because what happens is people get heated. And, for our folks out there, you get angry with your spouse or your kids and you get into arguments and, that fight or flight kicks in. You don't even remember what you're arguing anymore. That logic thought's gone, right? Because it's all about survival. And that's what you start getting to that tipping point to where, okay, now I am actually seeing natural, unprepared responses from both candidates, Republican and Democrat. And we started to get there, and that's where they start saying things, right? And then what happened to moderators? I think Josh called it. Moderators jumped in, right?
Well, and they muted the mic.
Yes.
They at the most interesting point in the debate, they muted the mic. And it's like, I think Damon was like, I talked about it earlier. I think that the canvassing they did, it's like, we want a civilized debate where I agree with you, but here's where I don't. This small little thing. It's like, no, let's get back to caning, because when the caning came in, when they started going after each other, they muted the mics. It's like, why would you do that? This is where it gets interesting, because it was a fairly civil debate.
Yeah. And then, so when they cut his mic, right, and Vance was explaining how the Biden, Harris administration, and Biden's main name was not mentioned once, which I thought was fantastic. I thought that was a great move on Vance's part.
Pence's name was mentioned more times than Biden's,
which is funny.
So awesome.
So Vance was explaining how they've allowed over 800,000 migrants to enter the U.S. via that CBP-1 app lawfully, right? And it sounded like Walz claimed the CBP-1 app was used since the 90s, which is completely false. All right. They started using that in 2023. That was a Biden-Harris administration thing, right? So they could start mass paroling migrants into the country. But that's not what it sounded like when they cut, but that's what happened when they cut Vance's mic and he wasn't able to explain it. They knew what they were doing. They saved Walsh a couple of times. When Walsh started rambling about his time in Tiananmen Square when he wasn't there for Tiananmen Square.
Hold on right there. Stop right there, Josh. So have you ever misspoken about being in Tiananmen Square when the dude was being run over by the tank?
No, never.
Okay. Just checking.
Me neither.
Just checking.
Me neither.
Never.
It's 3 of 3.
And so I wasn't in Daly Plaza when Kennedy was shot.
And he wasn't even in Hong Kong. He was back in Nebraska or something like that.
Yeah, dude, he was in Nebraska. I get it. So you're like, hey man, it's like, yeah, dude, I was in New York City, like when some riot happened or something like that. Yeah, but I was kind of near Times Square. I don't know exactly, but I was kind of in the general area. It's like, no, dude, like you weren't even on the same continent. Like I've never mixed that up. So, but Tim Walsh fell into that trap of he felt the need to fill the silence, right? Because there was that silence and then he started talking again. I was like, oh, this is bad. Like, this is just really bad. He looked like a complete, and then the moderators cut him off. His time wasn't up. The moderators cut him off. The moderators saved him a couple times.
They even came out with JD Vance, and they were like, "You have 20 seconds left, right?" Trying to bait him. You have 20 seconds left. Do you want to, blah 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 blah?
Good.
That whole thing with Tiananmen Square though was a win for Walz, because that is no longer an issue. It's no longer an issue because he addressed it in the debate. Yeah, and the sad commentary with this whole thing is they were talking about the border bills and everything that Trump supposedly shot down and all this stuff. And I was damn close, and I I put it in the chat in the Slack chat. I was like, if any border patrol are watching this right now and actually paying attention, their TVs are probably damaged because they're throwing stuff at it. Because I'm telling you, and I hope Diego listens. I don't even know if Diego listens anymore. If Border Patrol was listening to that whole thing, they'd be throwing stuff at their televisions. They'd be very upset because it's not about, do we need a new law? It's not about that. Support the laws or enforce the laws that are on the books, and everything will be okay. That's the problem. And I get so frustrated because the average American does not dig into these things. They've never been down to the border. They eat this stuff up that's being said to them in these debates, and it's being boiled down to little talking points. And Waltz is guilty of it, and so is JD Vance, so is Trump, so is Harris. These are not simple talking points. They're not. It's like, enforce the laws that are on the books. Border Patrol can do it now. They did it for how many decades? It wasn't about a wall. It wasn't about that. Just enforce the laws that are on the books. And it's like, God, it makes me so frustrated that people are listening to this and just eating it up. It's like, yeah, we need a new law. No, you don't need a new law. You don't need more funding. And that's why I was getting pissed off about it. It's like Border Patrol, like your average dude down there, in the, mid-management levels, like, we don't need a new law. Just let us enforce the laws that are on the books. And it gets so, I don't know, Roger, it gets so, it's frustrating, man, because I don't know, people, I guess, don't have the time to dig into this stuff. I don't know. It's frustrating because all these things are just talking points these days.
Yeah, they don't have the time, and most of them don't care. I mean, there's the reality of it, or at least a large percentage of it. A large percentage of folks out there. So, I know it is getting late, so I want to go around the horn one last time. Josh, you got some final thoughts on this?
No. Again, I don't think it moved the needle either way.
No, I would agree with you. How about you, Luke? You got final thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think it moved the needle for maybe 2028, makes 2028 more interesting. But I really wish that it wasn't past Josh's bedtime, because we got stuff in Israel going on. We've got a longshoreman strike going on. We've got all this stuff, and the administration and here that nobody seems to care. And I want to point out one more thing that Josh pointed out, and Damon, I think somebody else, maybe Warren, whoever it was like, North Carolina wasn't mentioned once. North Carolina, Eastern Tennessee, wasn't mentioned once. And I that's a problem.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, a little bit like we talked about, Vance came off as polished. Wallace was a little nervous, settled in. I think Vance did a great job for himself, advocating for himself in 2028. I do think, and granted, just one debate, if you are on the Democratic side, or the Democrat side, you're probably like, Wallace is probably not going to be on the ticket in 2028 unless he wins this thing. And I think overall, what I'm kind of getting tired of is the moderators, man. Not even their attitudes, and obviously they're swayed one way. It's just the same old time. Are we really talking about January 6th again? Over and over and over again. You mentioned 2 or 3 things right there, Luke. It's like, hey, maybe we should talk about what's going on in the Middle East. Maybe we should talk about what's going on with Iran. Maybe we should talk about what's going on in North Carolina. Maybe we should talk about why, you've got Governor DeSantis having to fly stuff into North Carolina when the president won't make the call to the military base down there to start airlifting supplies in. Right. And I think Josh is typing, Joe Rogan and Sean Ryan need to moderate the next debate. Yeah. Talk about issues that one, there are no talking points for, because that's what they do. They know there's going to be the big, 10 things, right? Go off topic a little bit and catch them, not necessarily off guard, but let's dive a little bit deeper. I would prefer that they narrow it down to 3 or 4 topics and just hammer those home for the next 90 minutes. And hey, if you want to be a moderator, I don't have a problem with coming back. And they did this once to JD Vance and didn't do it to Tim Walz. Come back and say, hey, can you be more specific? Can you outline that a little bit more? I need some more details. I don't have a problem with moderators doing that. But when you sit there and you try to fact check one side, or you have loaded questions or whatever, but get rid of the tired old topics. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about January 6th, dude. It's over. Obviously, Trump lost. Biden's the president. Sort of, kind of, maybe. He's there, but there are other issues that are going on right now that we need to be addressing, and that's what I want to hear about. So that's my final thought. I think Walsh is out of the picture 2028. I think Vance, hey man, like Josh said, there's a lot to go there, a long way to go there, but he could be in the running for 2028. And I don't know, man. We have what 30 some odd days before the election, so there's a lot more. And we still have the October surprise, and we've even put out a GIF, with Tim Sandusky Walsh. So we'll see how true that is. But other than that, hey, thanks for everybody who participated in the Slack channel tonight. Thanks for everybody watching this. Keep your canteen cups tightly secured and full of some good booze.